Chapter 547. That proved that the Long Yuan sword had already recognized its master. Sheng Wanwan's heart was in a mess as she stared at Chu Luiyue. Now that these people have accused you of stealing the Long Yuan sword, what else do you have to say? Chu Luiyue looked calm. I didn't do it. Even if you ask me 1,000 times, I will only say this. I didn't do it. She looked very confident and didn't seem like she was lying. Sheng Wanwan couldn't make up her mind. On the one hand, since Yang Qin and the rest dared to make a scene in front of her, they definitely had evidence. What they said just now was also true. On the other hand, the Long Yuan sword was left behind by Taizu. Logically speaking, only people with the Tianling royal bloodline could have a chance to awaken it. Chu Luiyue wouldn't have a chance. Yang Qin was so angry that she wanted to laugh. Chu Luiyue, now that things have come to this, the evidence is irrefutable. Are you still not willing to admit it? How long are you going to deny it? Chu Luiyue said calmly. Why should I admit to something that I didn't do? Yang Qin was about to retort when Chu Luiyue continued. The so-called irrefutable evidence is actually just the testimony of the few of you. There's no substantial evidence at all, right? In detail, Chou Ding only saw the Long Yuan sword awakening. As for the so-called, someone stole the Long Yuan sword. Only you and Ning Jiaojiao saw it, right? Oh no, Chang Wanzhou. Chang Wanzhou suddenly said. I didn't see the scene that they were talking about. Yang Qin said angrily. You said you didn't see it? Then why did you fight with the two of us? The injuries on her body were real. Chang Wanzhou pointed at Ning Jiaojiao. You used despicable means to eliminate people and pushed the blame to Lu Yu. Ning Jiaojiao's expression suddenly froze. Chang Wanzhou pointed at Yang Qin. You, along with 2 senior brothers from the Purple Shao Sword sect, wanted to snatch Lu Yu's treasure. After being rejected, you flew into a rage out of humiliation and attacked her. Yang Qin's eyelids twitched. It's obvious that you're in the wrong first. Don't tell me you're not allowed to fight back? As for your injuries, you're just too weak. Chang Wanzhou's expression was cold. Every word he said was self-righteous. Yang Qin felt guilty at first. You have a close relationship with Chu Luiyue, so of course you would speak up for her. What you've said is nothing more than the words of a single person. It's simply not trustworthy. No matter what happened at that time really happened. Chu Luiyue had no way to deny it. Jiang Yuqing stared at Chu Luiyue and frowned. Chu Luiyue, other than Chang Wanzhou, do you have any other excuses? Chu Luiyue didn't say anything. Ning Jiaojiao sneered. Of course she has nothing to say. Because she was indeed the one who did it. Sheng Wanwan took a step forward. The pressure on her body was extremely strong. She looked at Chu Luiyue condescendingly. Chu Luiyue, if you can't prove your innocence, then you'll stay in Xenli Garden today. Chu Luiyue looked up slightly. Sheng Wanwan's face didn't seem to change, but the emotions in her eyes were clearly seen by Ning Jiaojiao. Perhaps Sheng Wanwan could fool others, but she couldn't fool Ning Jiaojiao. Shock, anger, jealousy, Sheng Wanwan would probably be annoyed to death if she saw her face now. Of course, she wouldn't have any good impression of her. In fact, Chu Luiyue could even clearly feel Sheng Wanwan's deep hostility towards her. She had no doubt that Sheng Wanwan would definitely think of ways to kill her once she had the chance. Now, if she couldn't clear her name, what awaited her would definitely be torture. The corners of Chu Luiyue's lips twitched slightly. Of course I can. The room was silent for a moment. Yang Qin narrowed her eyes and didn't think much of it. A cornered beast will still fight. First, I have a fiend. Chu Luiyue raised her hand, and a red figure instantly appeared in her palm. That was a furry, blood ferret? The air froze for a moment. With Chu Luiyue's talent and strength, logically speaking, her requirements for a fiend should be very high. How could she contract with a 3rd-grade fiend? And it was the type with the least combat power. Yang Qin and Ning Jiaojiao's expressions changed at the same time. Impossible. How could you have a blood ferret as your fiend? Yang Qin blurted out. Chu Luiyue glanced at her. Dumpling was immediately unhappy and bared its teeth at her fiercely. Who are you looking down on? I'm also very powerful, okay? Why does it sound like I'm not worthy of my master? Since when did this thing have the right to comment on the matters between master and servant? I had this blood ferret when I was still in country Yao Chen. Vice Admiral Mu has also seen it before, so I can prove it. Chu Luiwei directly brought up Mu Qinghe and immediately shut Yang Qin up. She dared to say that Chu Luiwei was lying, but she didn't dare to question Mu Qinghe. When a cultivator has a fiend, they can't contract with other fiends. I believe all of you are well aware of this, so I won't say too much. However, I have to thank Miss Yang for thinking highly of me and thinking that I can contract with a mythical beast. I'll take your blessings first. If I really contract with a mythical beast in the future, I definitely won't forget you. Yang Qin choked and was speechless. Shengguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing looked at each other and saw some doubt in each other's eyes. Chu Liuyue's words weren't without reason. Even in the Tianling dynasty, the traces of a mythical beast were extremely difficult to track down. Didn't Shangguan Yu only contract with a 9-colored heavenly pheasant and not a mythical beast? To say that Chu Liuyue's fiend was a legendary 3-eyed eagle. It was indeed a little ridiculous. Chu Luiyue pinched Dumpling's ear to comfort her. Dumpling jumped onto her shoulder, but it was still puffing its cheeks in anger. Because of this small body, it was always looked down upon. It was really too much. If it wasn't for the fact that it had to cooperate with Chu Luiyue, it would have already rushed over and scratched Yang Qin's face. Its black eyes were filled with murderous intent as it glared at Yang Qin. Yang Qin suddenly felt a chill down her spine. Secondly, the Tianling God Realm is where Taizu passed away back then. I heard that before the Wanzheng competition, the Tianling God Realm had never been open to outsiders. This is the first and only time it's open to non-members of the Tianling royal family. The Long Yuan sword is a legendary artifact. Even if it wants to awaken and choose a new master, it will definitely be decided by the sword soul. Do you think that the Long Yuan sword will choose someone like me, who comes from an ordinary background and has nothing to do with the Tianling royal family, as its new master? Where are you putting the third princess and the other members of the Tianling royal family? Chu Liuyue spoke slowly, but every word was hurtful. Yang Qin and Ning Jiaojiao suddenly realized that something was wrong. They hurriedly looked at Shangguan Wan and saw that her face had indeed darkened. In fact, this was also a sore point for Shangguan Wan. She had always wanted to enter the Tianling God Realm, but she didn't have the chance in the past. After Shangguan Yu died, she thought that it was finally her turn. However, her Yuan meridian was completely destroyed, and she could no longer enter the Tianling God Realm. Chu Luiyue gently stroked her glabella. Thirdly, and this is also the most important point, the Long Yuan sword still exists in the Tianling God Realm. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 548. You're spouting nonsense. Yang Qin walked forward agitatedly, and her finger almost poked Chu Liuyue's face. I saw you draw out the Long Yuan sword with my own eyes. Invite any elder to enter the Tianling God Realm and you'll know whether I'm telling the truth or not. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and brushed Yang Qin's hand away. Of course, the third princess can also go in to check and see who's lying. Shangguan Wan clenched her teeth. Of course, she wanted to enter the Tianling God Realm. But now that her Yuan meridian was damaged, she would die if she went in. She had been putting on a disguise for the past year, trying her best not to let others see that there was a problem with her cultivation. If she really went to the Tianling God Realm, her lie would be exposed immediately. She suppressed the anger and indignation in her heart, turned around, and walked to Jiang Yuqing's side. Jiang Yuqing saw that something was wrong with her expression and immediately said, I'll send Elder Duanmu to check immediately. Shangguan Wan nodded, but the emotions in her heart could not be calmed down no matter what. Jiang Yuqing knew that she had suffered quite a blow today. First, it was Chu Luiyue, and now it was the Tianling God Realm. It wasn't a suitable choice to stay here any longer. He looked at Chu Luiyue and the others. All of you can leave first. When the results are out, the third princess and I will make our own decisions. Chu Luiwei had wanted to leave long ago. She really felt disgusted looking at these two faces. It was already very rare to be able to last so long. Thus, she answered without any hesitation and turned to leave. Little Zhou, let's go. Yang Qin and Ning Jiaojiao looked at each other. That's it? We put in so much effort to defeat Chu Luiwei, but this was the result? Ning Jiaojiao asked unwillingly. Third princess, you can't let Chu Luiwei leave so easily. Didn't you hear what I said just now? Jiang Yuqing suddenly interrupted Ning Jiaojiao with a cold expression. Ning Jiaojiao was shocked and quickly said, No. We will leave now. Yang Qin wanted to say something, but when she saw Jiang Yuqing's expression, she swallowed her words. Although she hadn't been in West Hill for long, she had heard a lot of rumors about Jiang Yuqing. He was not someone to be trifled with. Chou Ding had already taken his leave. Yang Qin and Ning Jiaojiao stayed for a while before leaving reluctantly. As soon as he walked out of the room, Chu Luiwei saw Yu Qisong waiting not far away. Yi Ranran was also by his side. Hearing the commotion, the two of them turned their gazes over worriedly. Originally, they wanted to welcome them, but there were many people around, so they could only stay where they were and wait for Chu Luiwei and Xiao Luo to walk over. Lu Yuanzhou, how are you guys? Wei Qisong scanned the two of them from head to toe as soon as he saw them. Chu Luiwei smiled. What can happen to us? It's just that the third princess called us over to ask some questions. Really? Yu Qisong naturally didn't believe it. Judging from Yang Qin's expression just now, it was definitely not that simple. Of course, aren't we fine now? It's getting late. Let's go back first. Yu Qisong could tell that Chu Luiwei had some things that were inconvenient for him to say, so he didn't ask any more and only nodded vigorously. Okay, let's go back. Chu Luiwei and the others left safely. Yang Qin and Ning Jiaojiao weren't so relaxed. The two of them walked out of the door one after another and were blocked by Chou Ding, who was waiting outside. He was burly like a small mountain and gave off an oppressive aura. I don't care what you want to do, but don't involve me in this kind of thing in the future. Chou Ding said sternly. At first, he didn't understand what was going on, but later on, he saw it clearly. These two clearly wanted to lay their hands on Chu Luiwei and even dragged him down. Originally, this matter had nothing to do with him, but now he had heard and seen it. He was completely tied to this matter. Although it wouldn't cause him to be punished, the feeling of being used for no reason was really disgusting. Ning Jiaojiao was frustrated and wasn't in the mood to deal with him. Got it. Chou Ding looked at the two of them warningly before leaving. Ning Jiaojiao was frustrated and could only vent her anger on Yang Qin in the end. Didn't you say that it was foolproof? What's going on now? Yang Qin wasn't any better than Ning Jiaojiao. Chu Luiwei caught them off guard. Until now, she still didn't understand how Chu Luiwei had the guts to let Shangguan Wan and the others check the Tianling God realm. She remembered clearly that the Long Yuan sword was loose at that time. How could it still be there? Could it be that Chu Luiwei really didn't take the Long Yuan sword in the end? But that was the Long Yuan sword. How could Chu Luiwei not be tempted by such a powerful legendary weapon? Seeing that Yang Qin wasn't moving, Ning Jiaojiao couldn't help but push her. I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? Yang Qin slapped her hand away and said impatiently. I'm listening. Do you think I'm not annoyed? If you have the time and energy to complain, why don't you think about what to do next? Ning Jiaojiao had a temper and was rarely contradicted like this, let alone by Yang Qin, who didn't have any background. She crossed her arms and said coldly, What do you mean by this? Weren't you the one who told me about this first? Now that you've dragged me down, it's clearly your fault, but you want to push the blame to me. If you didn't see it clearly in the end, how would things have turned out like this? Yang Qin sneered. Now that things have come to this, it's useless no matter what you say. When the third princess's results are out, it won't be too late for you to come and reason with me. If it's really as Chu Luiwei said, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. Ning Jiaojiao lowered her voice and said hatefully before leaving angrily. Yang Qin, who didn't show it on her face, but when she recalled Chu Luiwei's confident expression just now, she felt a little guilty. After the few of them left, only Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing were left in the room. Shangguan Wan sat motionlessly on the chair with a gloomy expression and resentment in her eyes. Jiang Yuqing walked out and saw this scene when he returned after instructing Chan Yi and Sun Qi on what to do. He paused for a moment but still walked over. "Wan, you already knew, didn't you?" Shangguan Wan suddenly spoke, her voice cold. Jiang Yuqing frowned. "What?" Shangguan Wan looked up and stared into his eyes. "You've seen Chu Luiyue before. Why didn't you tell me that she looked like this?" "It was indeed because of this." Jiang Yuqing sighed in his heart and said, "It's just a face. It's just a face that's somewhat similar. Why do you care so much about it?" A strange sneer suddenly came from Shangguan Wan's throat. "Oh, is that really what you think?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 549. Her voice made Jiang Yuqing very uncomfortable. However, he still endured it and leaned over. "Of course it's true. When have I ever lied to you? Actually, I don't like her very much either, but I didn't expect her to become the champion of the Wanzheng competition. Even if it's for her Yuan Meridian, you have to endure it for the time being." Shangguan Wan wasn't as easy to coax as before. The incident in the Tianling God realm had a huge impact on her, so much so that she was a little out of control now. She stood up abruptly and questioned, "What? You dare to say that you really didn't think of anything when you saw her face? If you didn't feel guilty, why didn't you tell me anything before?" God knew how shocked she was when she saw Chu Luiyue smile for the first time today. If Jiang Yuqing had reminded her previously, she wouldn't have lost her composure like that. What's there to feel guilty about? You just like to let your imagination run wild. I didn't tell you before because I felt that this matter wasn't worth mentioning at all. You've been too tired recently, so you're feeling uneasy. When your Yuan Meridian recovers, everything won't be a problem anymore. Jiang Yuqing knew Shangguan Wan's weakness too well, so he could always persuade her. As expected, Shangguan Wan's expression improved a lot at the mention of this. Jiang Yuqing coaxed Shangguan Wan for a while more before she was completely appeased. In the end, Jiang Yuqing personally sent Shangguan Wan back to the palace and watched her lie down to rest before finally leaving. After Jiang Yuqing left for a while, Chani walked in. "Third princess, young Master Jiang has left." Shangguan Wan opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear and bright, and she didn't look sleepy at all. She sat up and thought for a moment before instructing, "Chan Yi, go and check on that Chu Luiyue and find out her background. If there's anything wrong, report back immediately. Also, get someone to keep an eye on the Jiang family. See if there's anything unusual recently." Chani respectfully acknowledged the order and retreated. Only Shangguan Wan was left in the hall. She lit the sandalwood incense and wanted to take a nap. However, as soon as he closed his eyes, Chu Luiyue's face would appear in his mind. And that face always made her think of more terrible things. After doing this a few times, she was so annoyed that she smashed everything in the house into pieces. She only stopped when there was nothing left to throw. "Men!" She finally opened her mouth and shouted. The palace servants outside immediately walked in. "Clean this up," Shangguan Wan ordered. The palace servants all lowered their heads. There was no surprise on their faces. Obviously, this was not the first time they had encountered such a situation. After tidying everything up in an orderly manner, another batch of identical items was placed on the table. It looked exactly the same as before. Shangguan Wan finally gave up. On the other side, Chu Luiyue's group left Exenli Garden. Yu Qisong wanted to bring the two of them back to the Chongshu Pavilion, but Chu Luiyue declined. When he heard that Chu Luiyue was planning to buy a house in Weiling, Yu Qisong was a little surprised. When he saw Chu Luiyue for the first time that day, the people from the Mu clan followed by her side. It was as if they treated Chu Luiyue as an honored guest. She was living well in the Mu clan. Why did she suddenly want to move out? When Chu Luiyue saw his expression, she knew that he had misunderstood, so she explained. "Pavilion Master, I was chosen by Vice Admiral Mu, but it was Jian Fengqi who brought me here. Other than that, I have no other relationship with them." Only then did Yu Qisong realize that he had thought too much. He coughed awkwardly. I see. The rumors in Weiling recently seemed to be true. Even he was starting to believe them. It's not appropriate to keep living in the Mu clan. Little Zhou and I have already moved out. Although they said they were moving out, the two of them did not have much stuff. Yu Qisong suddenly asked, Then do you have a choice? Chu Luiyue shook her head. The Wanzheng competition had just ended. They did not have time to deal with these things. That was why she planned to find a place to stay with little Zhou before going to the Chongshu Pavilion. Yu Qisong's expression changed slightly. If you don't mind, I have an empty house for you to stay in. The group walked 3 streets and arrived in front of a house. Chu Luiyue looked at the familiar door in front of her and was stunned for a moment. Isn't this Yu Qisong's house in Weiling City? In the past, when he was free, he liked to stay here for a while. Chu Luiyue had also been here many times. Although this house is a little remote, it's quiet. If you don't mind, you can stay here. As Yu Qisong spoke, he pushed open the door. There was no one inside, and many things had been packed up. Recalling the scene of Yu Qisong selling seals at 100 Herbs Building, Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. Is he planning to sell this place too? Seeing Chu Luiyue's expression, Yu Qisong thought that Chu Luiyue did not like it. Actually, no one has lived in this house for a long time. If you don't like it, no, this house is very good. Little Zhou and I like peace and quiet. This place is just right. Chu Luiyue hurriedly spoke and smiled brightly at Yu Qisong. If not for your help, little Zhou and I don't know when we would have found a house that we like. Yu Qisong was also very happy. It's good that you like it. It's good that you like it. Chu Luiyue said. Pavilion Master, little Zhou and I can't stay in your house for free. Yu Qisong immediately shook his head. Lu Yu, you and Wanzhou are already disciples of Chongshu Pavilion. There's really no need to be so polite. Besides, I'm really happy that you chose Chongshu Pavilion today. Compared to all of this, a house was nothing. Yu Qisong was sincere. If it weren't for Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou today, Chongshu Pavilion basically wouldn't have anyone to choose. In the end, it would only become a laughing stock. They were helping Chong Su cabinet and helping him save his last bit of face. Chu Luiyue wanted to say something but hesitated. Yu Qisong was obviously short of money now. Otherwise, he wouldn't have started to sell these things. But he would never take his money. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and said, Pavilion Master, I have something to talk to you about. Is it convenient for you? Yu Qisong felt a little strange, but he still nodded. Of course. Chang Wanzhou and Yi Ranran knew that the two had something to discuss, so they stayed where they were. Chu Luiyue and Yu Qisong went to another small courtyard. Lu Yu, what do you want to talk about? Yu Qisong looked at Chu Luiyue kindly. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath, took out a wooden box from his universe ring, and handed it over. Yu Qisong's expression froze. This was clearly what he sold in 100 Herbs Building that day. How could it be in Chu Luiyue's hands? Chu Luiyue said softly, Pavilion Master, I bought this after you left that day. Now, it's returned to its original owner. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 550. Yu Qisong didn't expect that what Chu Luiyue wanted to talk to him about was actually this. He looked at the wooden box with a complicated gaze and shook his head. Since you've already bought it, it's yours. You don't have to return it to me. Chu Luiyue persistently pushed it forward. You said that it's mine. Then it's my freedom to do whatever I want with it now, isn't it? Yu Qisong was stunned. Pavilion Master, you've helped me in Xiaozhou. Take this as our return gift. If you don't want to accept it, then we really can't live here with a clear conscience. I'm afraid we'll have to find another place to live. Chu Luiyue sighed softly. The price of your courtyard is definitely higher than the price of this seal. Speaking of which, we've made a profit. Besides, I saw that you were really reluctant to part with this thing that day. It must have a very special meaning to you, right? Since that's the case, please accept it. Yu Qisong hesitated for a long time before finally taking the wooden box. Chu Luiyue was right. This seal wasn't his most valuable item, but he cherished it very much. Now that it was back in his hands after going through so much trouble, Luyu, thank you very much. Yuchi-song looked at Chu Luiyue and said solemnly. Chu Luiyue's eyes moved slightly and he smiled. I'm also a member of the Chongshu Pavilion now. Do you still need to thank me? In the future, I'll have to rely on you a lot. Yuchi-song put away the wooden box. Knowing that Chu Luiyue was deliberately teasing him, he couldn't help but laugh. Since this matter has been resolved, when are you going to the Chongshu Pavilion? Chu Luiyue blinked. I'm afraid it'll take some time. I still have something to do. Yuchi-song asked curiously, what's the matter? Chu Luiyue revealed a meaningful smile. Naturally, it's about money. Spring Breeze Restaurant. In a private room on the second floor. Jian Fengqi was lying on the couch as usual. One of his long legs was curled up, one hand resting on his head, and gently waving the bone fan. Outside the screen, Shui Lu was playing the pipa. Jian Fengqi lazily closed his eyes as he listened to the music. He was so carefree and happy. Shui Lu was in a particularly good mood today. It was rare for her to finish playing a complete song. When the last sound fell, it really lingered in the air, lingering for 3 days. Only then did Shui Lu get up and walk behind the screen with the pipa in her arms. Then she bent her knees and bowed. Young master, the song's over. Jian Fengqi opened one of his eyes and smiled as he threw a cosmic ring over. Take it. S to you, to me to you, you do this to you. Tease to test sot, is to you. Jian Fengqi smiled. To tease. Little Lu, you're the only one in the entire West Hill. Shui Lu raised her eyebrows. Of course, it's because my song's worth the price. Jian Fengqi did not argue with her. He just smiled. Shui Lu sat down beside him. Back to the topic. I was interrupted when I just started talking about what happened last time. Since we have time today, it's time for you to talk to me. Jian Fengqi stretched. I knew you were going to ask this. I've just won some money, and I'm very tired. Can't you let me have a good rest? Shui Lu smiled like a spring breeze. Haven't you been resting since yesterday? Isn't it enough? Jian Fengqi immediately sat up. Cough cough, this young master was just speaking casually. Don't mind it, little Lu. However, Shui Lu did not reply. An extremely gentle smile appeared on her delicate and charming face. Jian Fengqi coughed. I've made some progress on the matter you asked me to investigate. Shui Lu's expression turned serious. You guessed right. That person does enter the palace every once in a while. Nominally, he's a celestial physician who treats the emperor, but in reality his whereabouts are very secretive. His background is very mysterious. I've looked into it for a long time, and his identity is indeed fake. As expected, Shui Lu murmured. I knew there was something wrong with that person. Have you found out his true identity? Jian Fengqi smiled bitterly. My little Lu, you think too highly of me. Do you think it's so easy to find out the identity of the emperor's celestial physician? I can't enter the palace every day. It's already not easy to find out about this, okay? Besides, I've been busy with mooching his matter. I don't have time. Shui Lu pursed her red lips. Everyone in Shilling City knows that you two are rivals. Who would have thought that you're secretly helping him? It's not that I want to say this, but Jian Fengqi, you used to be on equal footing with him. Now, you've become his errand boy. You're really something. Jian Fengqi's face darkened. You know that, I don't know anything. Shui Lu's expression turned a little colder. I've never stopped you if you want to interact with him. You have your reasons. But, you can distinguish between right and wrong. Little Lu, actually, I'm not listening. Jian Fengqi shut his mouth and thought to himself, this little Lu looks as gentle as water, but she's actually very fierce. She's also stubborn, smelly, and tough. It's a complete waste of saliva to talk to her. He decided to change the topic. Actually, my trip this time wasn't completely fruitless. Guess who I met? Shui glanced at him lazily, as if it was up to him to say it or not. Jian Fengqi sat up straight, leaned in front of her, and gestured a number. 13. Shui Lu didn't realize it at first, but after a while, she suddenly realized something and covered her mouth subconsciously. Her eyes were full of shock. The room fell silent for a moment. After a while, Shui Lu whispered. Really? Her voice was trembling. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes. Actually, I didn't see it with my own eyes. I just felt that the aura was very similar. But it's probably right. According to my guess, it's a bit like... He gestured another number. 7. He had always been very sharp in this aspect. Shui Lu was silent for a while. It seems that the rumor is true. They've all gone outside? Of course. Otherwise, how do you think they could hide for so long? In order to capture those 13 people, Jiang Yuqing had put in a lot of effort. If he didn't choose to burn the boats, how could he deal with this overwhelming pursuit? Shui Lu stood up with a serious expression. She hugged the pipa in her arms tightly and paced back and forth. Jian Fengqi knew that this was her reaction when she was nervous. Although so much time had passed, she was still very concerned about this matter. But they can't keep doing this, Shui Lu suddenly stopped halfway and quickly turned around. Outside the tightly locked door, there was the sound of light and quick footsteps. A clear female voice rang out with a hint of a smile on her face. Young Master Jian, are you inside? Jian Fengqi was stunned. Chu Luwe. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 551. How did she find this place? Jian Fengqi's mind turned, and he immediately understood why Chu Luwe was here. She's clearly here for money. His face darkened at the thought of this. Shui Lu quickly returned to her seat outside the screen, looking as if she had just finished playing. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Jian Fengqi's face darkened even more. She already knew which room he was in, so why was she still knocking? Seeing that he was not moving, Shui Lu went to open the door. As soon as the door opened, a beautiful woman's face came into view. Shui Lu played in Spring Breeze restaurant every day and had seen countless beautiful women. But when this woman appeared in front of her, her eyes still lit up. She revealed a faint smile. Miss, Chu Luwe looked at the woman in front of her, a trace of surprise flashing through her eyes. Why was Shui Lu in Spring Breeze restaurant? Wasn't she from Jinchuan? There was once a popular saying, Lu's music moves Jinchuan. It praised Shui Lu for playing the pipa well. Jinchuan was thousands of miles away from the Western Tomb, so why was she here? The women in Spring Breeze restaurant sold their skills, not their bodies. Moreover, the cost was extremely high. Ordinary people could not even afford a sip of tea here, let alone listen to the women play and sing. It seemed that Shui Lu had become the top hostess of Spring Breeze restaurant. She suppressed the surprise in her heart and smiled. I'm Chu Luwe. Shui Lu was stunned. Chu Luwe's name was like thunder in the Western Tomb recently. She did not expect her to look like this. Shui Lu greets Miss Chu. Chu Luwe glanced into the room. Is young Master Jian inside? Shui Lu gently nodded. Little Lu, I won't see anyone today. Jian Fengqi's lazy voice came from inside. Shui Lu secretly cursed Jian Fengqi for using her as a shield again. But she still looked at Chu Luwe with a troubled expression. Miss Chu, you see, Chu Luwe suddenly said. Sister Shui Lu, your hairpin is crooked. Shui Lu was shocked. She quickly turned around and walked to the front of the bronze mirror. She carefully looked at the hairpin on her head. Chu Luwe couldn't help but smile inwardly. Shui Lu cared a lot about hair accessories. Other than the pipa, that was the second most important thing to her. Sure enough, nothing had changed. While Shui Lu was looking at the mirror, she walked in and went behind the screen. Jian Fengqi did not expect her to barge in directly, and he was stunned for a moment. Young Master Jian, it seems like you've been living a carefree life. Chu Luwe sighed sincerely. When she came up, she had already heard that Jian Fengqi had booked all the girls' venues, but she didn't expect it to be the most expensive one, Shui Lu. If he hadn't relied on her to earn money, would he have squandered it like this? Jian Fengqi finally reacted. Why are you here? Little Lu? Little Lu. After Shui Lu was done with her hairpin, she heard Jian Fengqi's voice. She turned around and saw that Chu Luiwei had already walked in. Her heart skipped a beat. In a moment of carelessness, she actually forgot about this. Chu Luiwei smiled at Shui Lu. Miss Lu, don't worry. This has nothing to do with you. Shui Lu was stunned. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind. No wonder she felt that Chu Luiwei looked familiar. Those eyebrows. Chu Luiwei looked at Jian Fengqi. Young Master Jian, actually, I'm here to ask you if you've forgotten something. Jian Fengqi saw that he couldn't avoid it anymore. He held his forehead in pain. I didn't forget. I promised to give you the money, not a single cent less. However, this young master has placed bets in all the major casinos. It'll take a few days for all these debts to be settled. I can only give you the money after I've settled everything, right? However, Chu Luiwei didn't fall for his trick. His smile became even warmer. I heard that in Shilling City, young Master Jian is famous for being a playboy. You're also a frequent customer of all the casinos. Even if their debts haven't been settled, you should at least remember how much money you've placed, right? Jian Fengqi's brain was very good. He always remembered clearly when it came to eating, drinking, and playing. This time, he had clearly made up his mind to make a huge profit. How could he forget how much he had bet? I'm not asking for much. It's only 1/10 of your profits. You should still be able to fork out this small amount of money, right? As Chu Luiwei spoke, he let out a long sigh and revealed a worried expression. To be honest, I have no other choice. That's why I personally came to Chun Feng restaurant to look for you. I'm really short on money. Jian Fengqi's mouth twitched. Where in the world did this lass hear all this from? She did all the talking. Are you kidding me? You're short on money? Jian Fengqi looked at her suspiciously. You're living and eating at the Mu residence. Could it be that Mu Qinghe doesn't give you any money? He's not that stingy, is he? Chu Luiwei thought that Mu Qinghe really had nothing to do with being stingy. Jian Fengqi, on the other hand, was very clear about it. Young Master Jian, you might not know, but I've already moved out of the Mu residence. Jian Fengqi was stunned. Oh, why did you suddenly move out? For the current Chu Luiwei, the Mu residence was actually an excellent choice. She had just won the Wanzheng competition, and now she wanted to cut ties with Mu Qinghe? Chu Luiwei couldn't be bothered to explain too much to him. She only said that she was already a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion and would be living in Shilling in the future. That was why she found herself a house. Everything in Shilling is good, but the prices are too high. Food, clothing, housing, transportation, everything costs money. Young Master Jian, can you really bear to see me living on the streets? Chu Luiwei said sincerely. Jian Fengqi's mouth twitched. She would live on the streets. It would be good enough if she didn't let others live on the streets. Actually, I've bet most of my money in the casino. I haven't gotten back a lot of it, so I really can't take out so much in such a short time. How about I give you a portion first? Jian Fengqi was about to negotiate with Chu Luiwei. However, as soon as he said that, he received a disdainful look from Shui Lu. TSK, this guy took out 100,000 white crystal coins without batting an eyelid. Now he's pretending to be poor. From what he said, it was obvious that he had promised to share the money with Chu Luiwei, but now he wanted to renege on his promise. But, useless. She walked up and gently persuaded him. Young Master Jian, you've always been a man of your words and generous. Now that Miss Chu is in trouble, you'll help her, right? Previously, there was a rumor that Jian Fengqi liked Chu Luiwei, but now it seemed to be complete nonsense. Jian Fengqi suddenly felt a lot of pressure. Finally, he gritted his teeth. Then I'll think of a way to raise the money. As he spoke, he took out a universe ring. Then, he took out another universe ring. When he took out the 5th universe ring, Shui Lu's expression gradually froze. However, Jian Fengqi didn't stop. How much did he win? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 552. Jian Fengqi took out a total of 8 Qianquan rings. These should be enough. Jian Fengqi tried his best not to look at the 8 Qianquan rings, but his heart was still bleeding. Chu Luiyue checked them one by one and finally showed a satisfied smile. That's more like it. She carefully put away the 8 Qianquan rings and looked at Jian Fengqi. She said with utmost sincerity, "Young Master Jian, without this money of yours, I really can't do anything in West Hill. I really don't know how to thank you." Jian Fengqi seemed to have lost all his strength as he waved his hand weakly. "You can go." "You're welcome." Last time, Chu Luiyue took away so much money from him because of the word, "thank you." Now that he heard her say that word again, his heart was trembling. This woman is too scary. Shui Lu, who was standing beside them, was already stunned. The size of the Qianquan rings varied according to their level. The ones that Jian Fengqi took out just now were all of high quality, and each of them could hold a lot of things. It went without saying what was inside. And he took out 8 of them at once, and gave them all to Chu Luiyue. Most importantly, this seemed to be only 1/10 of his profits. Did he rob all the casinos in the West Hill? Seeing Chu Luiyue put away the 8 Qianquan rings, Shui Lu suddenly understood why Jian Fengqi kept delaying and even tried to act shamelessly. If she had to give away so much money at once, she would be very reluctant. Jian Fengqi looked at her sadly. If she hadn't added fuel to the fire just now, he could have at least delayed it for another day. Although he didn't really intend to go back on his word, this feeling was too good. Chu Luiyue didn't plan to stay after successfully getting the money, so he directly bid farewell. "If that's the case, I won't disturb young Master Jian from listening to the music." Jian Fengqi waved his hand weakly again. If he looked at Chu Luiyue again, he would feel that another piece of his flesh had been cut off. Chu Luiyue bowed and was about to leave. However, the moment she turned around, she caught a glimpse of a square jade pendant on Jian Fengqi's couch. It seemed to have fallen off his body. The jade token was translucent white and looked very ordinary. However, the edges of the jade token were engraved with exquisite cloud patterns. In the middle of it, there was a small word engraved. "Medicine." Chu Luiyue was shocked. This jade pendant was clearly something that only the celestial physician of the Tianling royal family would have. How could Jian Fengqi have something like this? Seeing Chu Luiyue hesitating and not leaving, Jian Fengqi asked curiously, "Weren't you going to leave?" Chu Luiyue snapped out of her daze and glanced at Jian Fengqi's sleeve without batting an eyelid. She smiled and turned to leave the room. After Chu Luiyue left, Shui Lu walked over. "Don't you think that Chu Luiyue looks like, why is that thing there?" She was shocked and pointed at the jade pendant on the couch. Jian Fengqi turned around and realized that the jade pendant had fallen off at some point. He immediately put the jade pendant away, and the lazy expression on his face disappeared. Shui Lu frowned and asked, "Did Chu Luiyue see this thing just now?" Jian Fengqi hesitated for a moment and said, "Probably. However, I don't think she saw it clearly. How could you be so careless? How could you not keep an eye on such an important thing? If she finds out, don't worry. Very few people have seen this thing before. She wouldn't know what it is." Jian Fengqi shook his head. Shui Lu felt that it made sense. Chu Luiyue came from outside heaven's canopy. Even if she saw it clearly, she wouldn't think too much about it. "You must be more careful in the future." Shui Lu rubbed her forehead. Jian Fengqi knew that he was in the wrong and didn't explain himself. He only nodded solemnly. "I'll send someone to keep an eye on Chu Luiyue. If there are any abnormalities, we'll talk about it then." Actually, he didn't want to drag Chu Luiyue into this. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he didn't want to make a move on Chu Luiyue. Shui Lu nodded. Jian Fengqi looked at her strangely. "Based on your character in the past, you wouldn't let it go so easily? What's wrong this time?" Shui Lu glared at him. "You told me when I wanted to make a move. You also told me when I didn't want to make a move. Why are you so nosy? I'm just too lazy to make a move on her. Can't I?" Jian Fengqi raised his hands in surrender. Shui Lu was extremely frustrated. She hugged her pipa and played a melodious tune full of murderous intent. On the other side, Chu Luiyue walked out of Spring Breeze restaurant and prepared to return to her house. People came and went around her. From time to time, people would recognize her and look at her with different expressions. Chu Luiyue turned a deaf ear to them. Her expression was as usual. However, at this moment, her heart was in turmoil. The scene she saw just now kept replaying in her mind. Every Royal Celestial Physician's brand was specially made. There was no possibility of counterfeiting. That piece must be real. But there were several Royal Celestial Physician. Who could it be? Jian Fengqi couldn't have not recognized that item. However, he didn't return it. It was obvious that he wanted to keep it. Although he was extremely talented in the field of celestial physician, he was afraid of being restrained. Therefore, he had never thought of becoming a royal celestial physician. More importantly, Jian Fengqi's cuff was stained with something. Because it was just a quick glance, she couldn't be 100% sure. But if her guess was correct, what did he want to do with that thing? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 553. Chu Luiyue thought for a long time, but she couldn't figure it out, so she put this matter aside for the time being. She turned around and walked toward 100 Herbs building. On one hand, she planned to redeem the things that Yu Qisong had mortgaged. On the other hand, Chang Wanzhou had already finished all 3 pills in the Tianling God realm. It was time for him to buy some herbs and refine new pills. The cold and evil energy in his body had accumulated for many years, and it definitely couldn't be completely removed overnight. Fortunately, she was rich now. Otherwise, she might not be able to support Chang Wanzhou. Please let us go this time. We already know our mistake. We'll never do such a thing again. Yeah. My family said that if I can't get the ban lifted, they won't let me go back. Please help us. We really didn't mean it that day. Do you really want to force us into a dead end? Even if you don't let us in, it's fine. As long as you don't implicate our families. Chu Luiyue had just arrived at 100 Herbs building when she saw a group of people gathered at the door from afar. She walked closer and saw a few young women standing in front of the 100 Herbs building's door, begging bitterly. A servant stood on the steps with a polite smile on his face, but his words were very cruel and cold. I'm really sorry, ladies. This is an order from the supervisor himself. I'm just a servant. How would I dare to go against the supervisor's wishes? You should go back. We're not the only ones selling herbs in Xiling City, right? A haggard woman smiled bitterly. But only you have some herbs. 100 Herbs building had a very high status in Xiling City, and they monopolized many kinds of herbs. Some of them could only be bought from them. The servant smiled. Then this has nothing to do with 100 Herbs building. It's better for you to find another way. After he finished speaking, he gave a look to the guards beside him. A few burly guards immediately stepped forward. Ladies, please. Standing at the door would affect their business. However, the women refused to leave. Where could they go if they left? One of the women directly knelt down with tears on her face. I only ask for Manager Yu's mercy. Seeing this, the other 2 women also knelt down. The expression on the manservant's face turned cold. It seemed that these women were really brainless. They actually dared to make trouble in front of their 100 Herbs building. Hurry up and ask these ladies to leave. A few guards immediately picked them up, intending to take them away by force. Although these women were also cultivators, they were no match for these guards. They could only struggle madly. The shrill woman's voice sounded very ear-piercing. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. What was 100 Herbs building doing? He actually dared to chase away a guest in public? Doing business had always been about making money through harmony. A large part of the reason why 100 Herbs building could develop to its current scale was that they had always treated their customers extremely well. He had never heard of such a thing happening in the 100 Herbs building before. At this moment, the manservant looked up and saw Chu Luiyue in the crowd. A big smile immediately blossomed on his face, and he quickly walked over. Miss Chu, what wind blew you here? Come in. Chu Luiwei didn't expect the manservant to be so sharp-eyed that he could recognize her at a glance. She had no choice but to step forward. What she didn't know was that after last time, she had become the most desired customer of all the manservants in the 100 Herbs building. She was rich and straightforward. She bought whatever she wanted without even blinking her eyes. And she was approachable. She didn't put on airs at all. Chu Luiwei wasn't the only black gold card VIP in the 100 Herbs building, but they were basically all rich and powerful people. They always carried a faint pressure and were very difficult to serve. But Chu Luiwei was different. She was always amiable and had good eyesight. She could often pick out good things after looking around. Could there be a better customer than her? As Chu Luiwei walked in, she glanced at the girls from the corner of her eye and casually asked, "What's going on?" The manservant bowed and smiled. "It's nothing. It's just that those women spoke rudely in the 100 Herbs building before, so the supervisor ordered that they and their families would no longer be received." "Did they disturb you?" Chu Luiwei shook her head. She didn't know what those women said to be punished so severely. No wonder they were crying and making a fuss here without any regard for their dignity. They were probably forced to do so by their families. In the end, this was a matter of the 100 Herbs building. Chu Luiwei didn't intend to interfere, so she didn't continue asking. However, just as she was about to step through the door, a woman suddenly broke free from the restraint of the guards and rushed behind Chu Luiwei. She knelt down with a plop and shouted at the top of her lungs, "Miss Chu, please let us go." Chu Luiwei looked back in confusion. This woman was unfamiliar. She had never seen her before. It was clearly the 100 Herbs building that chose not to serve them. Why was she begging her? The manservant's expression turned cold. He immediately stood in front of Chu Luiwei and shouted at the guards, "Are you all incompetent? You should at least take responsibility for disturbing Miss Chu." The people behind hurriedly rushed over and tried to take the woman away. However, the woman seemed to be grasping at straws. She kept begging Chu Luiwei for help. "Miss Chu, we know that we were wrong. We shouldn't have criticized you behind your back. But we really didn't mean any harm. Now that we've been punished, please ask Manager Yu to spare us. We beg you." She shouted and cried. Just as she was pulled up, she was forced to kneel on the ground again. She looked really miserable and pitiful. Chu Luiwei was confused. This matter had something to do with her? She said to the guards, "You guys stop first and let her finish." The guards looked at each other. The manservant immediately said, "Didn't you hear what Miss Chu said? Let them all come here." He looked at the woman and said coldly, "Answer Miss Chu's questions honestly." That woman nodded like she was pounding garlic. She then told Chu Luiwei about what happened that day. Of course, she didn't go into detail about what they criticized Chu Luiwei. She just glossed over it. The rest was frantically begging for mercy. "Miss Chu, we really didn't mean it. We really won't dare to do it again, but this time, we beg you." Chu Luiwei fell into silence after hearing this. She didn't speak for a long time. She knew that these people had said something unpleasant. She didn't sympathize with them at all. But in fact, there were many people who criticized her behind her back. If she had to hold everyone accountable, she would have been exhausted. But when did 100 Herbs building have such a rule? Was the status of a black gold card VIP so high? "Actually, what are you doing?" A quiet and clear voice suddenly sounded. The manservant and the others immediately bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Manager Yu. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 554. Chu Luiwei looked up. A man in his 30s, dressed in a white robe, walked over. He was elegant, refined, and steady. He didn't look like a shrewd businessman, but more like a scholar. It turned out that this person was the manager of the 100 Herbs building. Yuling walked to Chu Luiwei and stood in front of her, smiling. "It's rare for Miss Chu to visit my humble shop. Why are you standing at the door?" Chu Luiwei was surprised. "Manager Yu knows me?" Yuling smiled and nodded. At the Wanzheng competition, Miss Chu was dazzling. "So you went to watch the Wanzheng competition?" Chu Luiwei also smiled. Thank you for your praise, Manager Yu. I didn't expect such a busy person like Manager Yu to have such leisure time. Yu Ling's strength was definitely above that of a 7th-stage warrior. Logically speaking, he wouldn't take these competitions too seriously. Besides, he was the manager of the 100 Herbs building, not the leader of any gang. It was really strange that he would spend time watching this. Yu Ling raised his eyebrows slightly. He couldn't say that he went to crazily make up lessons, right? Miss Chu left as quickly as she came. When she came to the 100 Herbs building before, he didn't see her and regretted it. He wanted to find an opportunity to meet her so that he wouldn't not recognize her in the future. However, Chu Luiwei lived in the Mu residence and was heavily guarded, so there was no chance. In the end, he could only choose to go to the Xuanji Square. After waiting for a few days, she finally came out and won first place. Only then did he really look at Chu Luiwei in a new light. That compliment just now was also sincere. Chu Luiwei raised her chin. I wanted to go in, but I didn't expect to see this scene. Yu Ling had actually recognized those women long ago. When he rushed over just now and saw those women making a scene in front of Chu Luiwei, he even had the heart to kill those women. If this matter was known by the higher-ups, he would be punished for lack of supervision. If he really angered Chu Luiwei, he felt a chill on his neck. Miss Chu, please forgive us. We didn't handle this matter well and caused you trouble. How about this? I'll accompany you in the selection. As Yu Ling spoke, he gave the guard and the servant a warning look. Everyone immediately took action, wanting to take those people away. A woman wanted to say something, but she suddenly felt a powerful pressure descend upon her. Her chest felt stuffy, and she couldn't say a word. The other 2 women were the same. Chu Luiwei glanced at it and guessed that Yu Ling had personally taken action. She paused for a moment before continuing. I heard that this matter is related to me. Miss Chu, you misunderstand. The cause of this incident was that they had publicly humiliated a black gold card VIP in the territory of the 100 Herbs building. This is not only a humiliation to our honored guests, but also a contempt to our 100 Herbs building. Until now, it was their own fault for speaking carelessly. Regardless of whether it was you or someone else, the outcome would be the same. Yu Ling's expression was indifferent, but his tone was unquestionable. He glanced at those people and said indifferently, if you're not afraid that you won't be able to buy any herbs in Xiling City in the future, you can continue to cause trouble. The struggling movements of the women suddenly froze. The onlookers also fell silent for a moment. This was a blatant threat. No one doubted whether the 100 Herbs building had the ability to do so. Since Yu Ling dared to say it in public, he could definitely do it. The 100 Herbs building had never taken the initiative to cause trouble, but when faced with such troublemakers, they would definitely not be soft-hearted. Chu Luiwei thought to herself. This manager Yu looked gentle, but he was very bold. No wonder he could support the 100 Herbs building. Those women knew that it was hopeless. If they continued to cause trouble, the situation would only get worse. They had no choice but to leave in a daze. After walking for a distance, the pressure on their bodies dissipated. One of the women couldn't help but murmur in a low voice, "What did we do wrong? What did we do wrong? We just casually said a few words. How did this happen? How did this happen?" Yu Ling coldly retracted his gaze. The mistake was that they had offended someone they shouldn't have. He looked at Chu Luiwei. The frost on his face dissipated, and he smiled slightly. Miss Chu, please. Yu Ling followed Chu Luiwei in. Miss Chu, what do you want to see this time? Many people in the exhibition hall on the first floor looked over with envy in their eyes. The manager of the 100 Herbs building personally accompanied. This was the first time. But Chu Luiwei was a black gold card VIP. Chu Luiwei paused. Like last time, I want 5 times the amount. Yu Ling raised his eyebrows. Last time, Chu Luiwei directly spent 90,000 white crystal coins here, which was already considered generous. He didn't expect that this time, he would directly ask for so much. 5 times the amount. It was hundreds of thousands of white crystal coins. Even in the entire Xiling City, there were definitely not many people who could take out so much money at once. And looking at Chu Luiwei's expression, he didn't seem to feel sorry at all. The surroundings were silent for a moment. Obviously, they were stunned by Chu Liyue's big spending. At this time, they suddenly understood why Yu Ling would forever reject those women just because they offended Chu Liyue. Even if they went bankrupt, they couldn't take out so much money. However, this was just the money that Chu Liyue casually spent. Yu Ling said to the stunned servant beside him, "Why aren't you preparing immediately? For Miss Chu, be sure to choose the best." The servant suddenly woke up and hurriedly went to transfer the goods. Many servants sighed when they saw this. Why did the manager come today? If he didn't come, any one of them would be involved in Chu Liyue's order today and would be rich. Unfortunately, the manager stood there as if he wanted to accompany them to the end. They were afraid that they couldn't interfere. "Miss Chu, there are some new things on the second floor recently. Do you want to take a look?" Yu Ling asked. Chu Liyue nodded. "Please." After saying that, Yu Ling led Chu Liyue to the second floor. After the two of them left for a while, in the quiet exhibition hall on the first floor, someone heaved a heavy sigh. "Oh my God. How much money did she spend just now? I don't know, and I don't want to know. Comparisons are odious. We have to choose carefully when we buy things on the first floor, but she went directly to the second floor. She's really rich. Strange, when Miss Chu came last time, she was accompanied by the people from the Mu clan. Why didn't I see them this time?" Everyone was discussing, but it had nothing to do with Chu Liyue. Although it was quite satisfying to kill Mu Qinghe, it had to be said that she was more confident in spending her own money. Besides, it was really difficult for her to spend all her money now. The second floor had always been deserted, and there was not a single customer today. Chu Liyue seemed to have booked the whole place. Yu Ling glanced at her and said tentatively, "Miss Chu, you can choose whatever you like. You were shocked at the entrance today, so everything you buy today will be 30% off." Originally, he didn't want to take the money, but it seemed that the higher-ups didn't want Miss Chu to know. It was not good to be too obvious. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 555. 30% discount? Isn't it said that the black gold card has a 15% discount? Chu Liyue asked in confusion. Even after she spent nearly 100,000 white crystal coins last time, the discount did not increase, but there was a seat on the third floor. Yu Ling coughed. "This, because you bought more things this time, and didn't you plan to buy other things? It's only right to give you a discount. In Xiling City, there aren't many guests as generous as you." The last sentence was true, and Yu Ling said it very sincerely. Chu Liyue did not think much and nodded with a smile. "Yes. The pavilion master of Chongshu Pavilion sold a lot of things here before, right? I want all the ones that are still in stock." Yu Ling was surprised. "Really? You want all of them?" "Yes." Seeing that Chu Liyue looked serious and did not seem to be joking, Yu Ling's expression also became much more serious. "In that case, please wait for a moment, I'll ask them to get it. Because Elder Song came one after another, it will take some time to count all of them. I can wait." Chu Liyue did not mind and walked casually along the crystal cabinet. There were indeed a lot of rare medicinal herbs. The 100 Herbs building was really good in this aspect. No wonder they were so confident. After Yu Ling finished instructing the servant and came back, Chu Liyue looked at the medicinal herbs in the crystal cabinet and asked casually, "By the way, General Manager you just said that Elder Song came one after another. How long has it been?" Yu Ling thought for a moment. "About half a year." At first, he was quite shocked by this matter, so he had a deep impression of it. More than half a year. How much damage did the Chongshu Pavilion suffer to cause Yuchi Song to be in such a state? It was no wonder that Jiao-Xing Alliance was tempted to take over. "I'm afraid that the Chongshu Pavilion is not having a good time in Xiling now. It seems that Miss Chu is very interested in Elder Song's things?" Yu Ling asked. Chu Liyue wasn't afraid of being questioned. "Manager you may not know this, but I am now a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion." News of what happened in Xianli Garden had not yet spread, so it was normal that Yu Ling did not know about it. As expected, Yu Ling was stunned for a moment. Are you saying that after the Wanzheng competition, you chose the Chongshu Pavilion? Didn't they say that they could choose any of the major sects? Moreover, Chu Luiyue was number 1. Wouldn't it be easy for him to go to any school? Why did he choose the Chongshu Pavilion? Chu Luiyue nodded. Yu Ling had always been good with words, but he didn't know what to say at this time. Congratulate him? Entering the current Chongshu Pavilion was really not something worth congratulating. Say it's a pity? Obviously, this was Chu Luiyue's choice. Chu Luiyue had already expected such a reaction from him, so she didn't take it to heart and chose a few herbs that she liked. Yu Ling followed beside her. He wanted to explain a thing or two to her, but he soon realized that he was useless. Chu Luiyue was very straightforward when it came to buying things. She would often buy whatever she liked. Occasionally, she would ask a question or two, such as the age. Moreover, her guesses were very accurate. Gradually, Yu Ling finally confirmed that the situation that was reported previously was not exaggerated. Chu Luiyue could indeed be considered proficient in this field. But why did she need so many precious herbs? According to her current age, it would be a little difficult for her to refine these herbs. However, Yu Ling did not ask. Chu Luiyue chose a few more herbs. Then, a servant organized Yu Qisong's things and sent them over. With a rough glance, there were at least dozens of things. Chu Luiyue opened a few boxes and took a look. As expected, they were all very familiar things. She really didn't know how Yu Qisong felt when he sold all these things. Chu Luiyue sighed softly in her heart. She didn't look at them anymore and put them all into the interspatial ring. Everything was settled together. Yu Ling personally made a list, counted it, and said with a smile, "After the discount, it's a total of 1,050,000 white crystal coins." Even though the surrounding manservants already had a premonition, when they heard this number, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Chu Luiyue handed over an interspatial ring that she had just taken from Jian Fengqi. "Sorry to trouble you, General Manager Yu." Yu Ling took the interspatial ring, looked down, and raised his eyebrows slightly. This was a special interspatial ring of Dragon Teeth Mountain. He had only seen it in Jian Fengqi's hands. Could this money be from Jian Fengqi? But he quickly suppressed the doubts in his heart and took out the corresponding amount of white crystal coins. When he took it away, he deliberately glanced at Chu Luiyue. She looked relaxed as if she didn't care about the 1,000,000 white crystal coins at all. Her bearing alone was more powerful than many disciples of aristocratic families. No wonder. Miss Chu, you have spent more than 1,000,000 white crystal coins in the 100 Herbs building. A private room will be opened for you on the 3rd floor. It will be yours forever. Would you like to have a look now? Chu Luiyue's eyes flashed with surprise. So fast. Yu Ling's eyes flickered slightly. Of course, he couldn't tell her that he had been busy with this matter since he received the order from above. The efficiency of the 100 Herbs building has always been like this. Chu Luiyue thought about it and refused. "I won't go today. I'll come back another day." She had been outside for long enough today. It was time to go back. Yu Ling personally saw her out of the gate of the 100 Herbs building. It was not until Chu Luiyue's figure disappeared that Yu Ling exhaled softly. Recalling the scene just now, he felt a little conflicted. That interspatial ring. Thousands of miles away. At the top of the floating island, there was a majestic palace that had been standing there for a long time. Soldiers in heavy armor and holding long sabers stood on both sides. The atmosphere was majestic. A tall and slender figure was walking toward the main entrance of the hall. It was Rong Xiu. He had changed into a black brocade robe today. The collar was embroidered with gold thread, the cuffs were embroidered with clouds, and a black cloak was draped over his shoulders. If Chu Luiyue was here, she would find that Rong Xiu seemed to have changed into a different person. The aura that was once as gentle as jade was swept away, and in its place was absolute coldness and majesty. He killed decisively and looked down on everyone else. Rong Xiu was like a sheathed sword. He hid his sharpness and was gentle and reserved. But now, he was like a saber filled with a murderous aura. With a light wave, he could tear the world apart. Finally, he stood in front of the soldiers. Everyone knelt on one knee and bowed respectfully. Greetings, Your Highness. Rong Xiu's eyes were as cold as a saber as they swept across the crowd. The unparalleled palace sent people to assassinate Ai with the intention of rebellion. The evidence is conclusive. They should be punished. Today, I will personally go to war against the unparalleled palace. Kill them all. Yes, Your Highness. Kill. 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 Shouts shook the sky. Yan Qing and Umo, who were standing behind Rong Xiu, looked at each other. There were many people who coveted the position of His Highness. In the past few years, there had been a lot of trouble. But this was the first time that His Highness had issued a kill order. They did not know what the people sent by the unparalleled palace had done to make His Highness want to kill them at all costs. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 556. Tianling Palace. Huayang Palace. Elder Duanmu, what's the result of the investigation? Shangguan asked nervously. Duanmu Chun shook his head. Don't worry, Third Princess. Everything is normal in the Tianling God realm. The Long Yuan sword hasn't been taken away. Shangguan's heart finally settled down. That's good, Duanmu Chun looked at her strangely. Third Princess, why did you suddenly think of this? If the Long Yuan sword isn't here, the Tianling God realm shouldn't be able to continue existing. Shangguan forced a smile. I know. It's just that I've been feeling uneasy ever since the Tianling God realm was opened for the Wanzheng competition. I feel that the ancestors will blame me for this. That's why I wanted to ask Elder Duanmu to confirm that it didn't affect the Tianling God realm in any way. She patted her chest and frowned. If it's really my fault that the Tianling God realm suffered any losses, then I really can't absolve myself from the blame. Duanmu Chun looked at her and sighed. The third princess was actually quite good in all aspects, but she didn't have the courage to do things. She was the one who suggested opening the Tianling God realm back then, but she was still the one who was worried and even regretful now. If the princess was still here, this probably wouldn't have happened. Unfortunately, the third princess was in power now and had absolute authority. Although there were other princes and princesses in the royal family, no one was more suitable for the current position than the third princess. If His Majesty couldn't wake up, the third princess would very likely take the throne directly. Third princess, you're thinking too much. You're also thinking for the entire Tianling dynasty. The Tianling God realm. He paused, feeling a little hesitant. Actually, after he entered the Tianling God realm, he felt that something was wrong. Although the Long Yuan sword was still there, the world was in chaos, and it didn't look like it had been silent for 1,000 years. However, he had never entered before, so he wasn't sure what was going on. What's wrong? Elder Duanmu? Shangguan asked. Duanmu Chun suppressed the suspicion in his heart. Nothing. I just feel that you might feel more at ease if you personally enter the Tianling God realm to take a look. Shangguan's expression froze for a moment before she moved her lips. I've been concentrating on cultivating and preparing for a breakthrough, so I don't have the time for now. Let's talk about it after a while. Duanmu Chun did not suspect anything and bowed respectfully. Just after you successfully break through this time, you can try to summon the Long Yuan sword. If you can succeed. He paused and swallowed the rest of his words. A hint of resentment flashed through Shangguan's eyes, but there was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. I understand what Elder Duanmu means. Duanmu Chun bowed and left. When his figure disappeared outside the hall, the smile on Shangguan's face quickly disappeared. She knew very well what Duanmu Chun meant. Since her father was unconscious, she was the eldest in the royal family. It was only right for her to take over everything. Although she had full authority over all matters of the Tianling dynasty, she did not have the right to do so. At the end of the day, she was only using the identity of the third princess. The throne of the Tianling dynasty was not only passed down to the princes. If the princess was outstanding enough, she could also fight for it. Just like how her father had planned to officially abdicate the throne during his wedding in Shangguanyu. If she wanted to take the next step, there were only two ways. First, her father had passed away, and she would naturally inherit the throne. However, the problem now was that not only could they not let her father pass away quietly, but they also had to think of a way to wake him up. Therefore, this path was not going to work no matter what. Second, she had to prove her ability and forcefully take over the throne. However, she was not Shangguanyu. Without the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, the people below her would definitely not be willing to submit to her. If she could summon the Long Yuan sword, it would be enough to prove that she was qualified to sit on that throne. A Long Yuan sword would be enough to defeat all the rumors and slanders. However, not to mention summoning the Long Yuan sword, even entering the Tianling God realm was a difficult task for her. Shangguan was frustrated. "Chani, bring Yang Qing to me." Yang Qing arrived at Huayang Palace and saw the expressionless Shangguan sitting at the head of the table. An ominous feeling rose in her heart. She walked over and knelt down. Shangguan looked at her and sneered. "Do you know why I called you here?" Yang Qing braced herself and said, It's the Long Yuan sword," Shangguan said slowly. "That's right. I've already checked it. And the Long Yuan sword is still in the Tianling God realm." "I knew it. How could this be?" Yang Qing instantly panicked. "Impossible. This is impossible. I saw it clearly at that time. Are you doubting me?" Shangguan asked. Yang Qing almost bit off her tongue. "And no." Shangguan stood up and walked slowly to her. "Raise your head." Yang Qing raised her head stiffly. Smith. There was a loud slap. Yang Qing was directly slapped to the ground, and half of her face quickly became red and swollen. "How dare you make a fool out of me like this? You must be tired of living." Yang Qing covered her face, and her voice trembled. But third princess, Ning Jiao also, smack. There was another slap. "Who is Ning Jiao and who are you?" Shangguan found it laughable. Ning Jiao was the only daughter of the Xianfeng Hall's hall master. She couldn't really do anything to Ning Jiao. However, an insignificant Yang Qing. It didn't matter. Shangguan stared at Yang Qing and suddenly said, "I remember that you have a superior Daijing Yuan Meridian, right?" In the evening, Chu Luiyue returned to the house and was surprised to find a freshly written plaque hanging above the door. Chu Residence. It was obvious that it was Yu Qisong's handwriting. She pushed the door open and entered. She immediately realized that the entire house had changed. The dejected aura from before was swept away. She had just taken 2 steps when she saw Chang Wanzhou walk out from the corner. He was actually holding a rag in his hand. Yi Ranran followed behind him. His sleeves were rolled up, and he was dragging a broom. Chu Luiyue's eyelids twitched. What are you doing?" Yi Ranran smiled shyly, and 2 small dimples appeared on his round little face. "Luiyu, you're back? We're tidying up the courtyard. What do you think?" Chu Luiyue could obviously see that they were tidying up the courtyard. The key was, how did you convince little Zhou to do these things? He looked like he really had nothing to do with these things. According to his personality, he really didn't seem like he would agree to do these things. Yi Ranran smiled brightly and said, "Actually, I originally planned to do it alone. But Wanzhou took the initiative to help, so I let him do it." Chu Luiyue looked at Chang Wanzhou in shock. Chang Wanzhou turned his face away awkwardly and hid the rag behind his back as he said coldly, "I cleaned your room. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 557. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh and walked over. "You don't have to do this. It's my room. I can clean it myself." Chang Wanzhou looked at her strangely. "But I'm your follower now. So this is what I should do," Chang Wanzhou said firmly. Although he hadn't done this for a long time, it didn't mean that he couldn't. "You can go and take a look. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, I'll change it." Chu Luiyue blinked and suddenly realized something. "Little Zhou, don't tell me you think that as a follower, you have to do these things?" Chang Wanzhou said affirmatively, "Yes. Otherwise, what's the use of having a follower?" Chu Luiyue looked at his confident face and felt a headache coming on. She didn't know what the person he met back then was thinking, teaching him such things. The more she looked at it, the more it seemed that he treated Chang Wanzhou as a little servant. But every time that person was mentioned, Chang Wanzhou's expression would always be much gentler. Although he never said it, Chu Luiyue could feel that he missed that person very much. That was why he traveled thousands of miles and went through so much trouble to come all the way from Nanjiang to West Hill. That person must have treated Chang Wanzhou sincerely, which was why he couldn't forget him. Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue smiled. Although you're my follower now, I won't ask anything of you. In the future, you can do these things if you want to. If you don't want to, don't. Do you understand? Otherwise, she would always have the illusion that she was bullying a child. Chang Wanzhou thought for a while. You don't like me doing this? Or do you think I'm not doing well? Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly and rubbed his hair. It seemed that this child couldn't understand what she really meant for a while. You're doing very well. Chang Wanzhou looked doubtful. But you haven't seen it yet. Yi Ranran said excitedly. Luyu, go and take a look. Wanzhou is very clean. You did even better than me. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Was this something to be proud of? He even provoked two geniuses with the Daijing Yuan Meridian to compete here? Helpless, she could only raise her hands in surrender. I'll go take a look now. Come quickly. Yi Ranran ran to the front excitedly. Chang Wanzhou habitually followed behind Chu Luiyue. After walking for a while, he arrived at her room. Although it was her room, she hadn't had the time to go in and take a look. Under the gaze of the two people beside him, Chu Luiyue pushed open the door and walked in. When he saw the situation in the room, Chu Luiyue was shocked. Isn't this too clean? Every place was as clean as new, and even the ground could clearly reflect her own shadow. She didn't take this matter to heart before, but now that she saw it, she finally understood why Yi Ranran was so excited. Chang Wanzhou seemed to be extraordinarily outstanding in this aspect. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but look back at Chang Wanzhou and ask suspiciously, Little Wanzhou, be honest. Xiao Zhou, tell me honestly, have you been doing this kind of thing for decades? Is that why you're so proficient? Chu Luiyue couldn't even think of a suitable word to describe it. Chang Wanzhou's face darkened. Chu Luiyue coughed and walked inside. There was a small wooden coffee table on the small couch by the window. Chu Luiyue walked closer. There was a chessboard and 2 jars of chess pieces on it. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Where did this kid find these things? They're placed quite well. Suddenly, her gaze froze, and she picked up a cup of ginger tea beside the chessboard in surprise. Little Zhou, how did you know that I like to place ginger tea beside the chessboard when I play chess? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 558. Chang Wanzhou was stunned. I've always placed it like this. Always? Chu Luiyue immediately understood. Did you do the same when you were with that person in the past? Who likes to do this too? Chang Wanzhou replied. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. There were many people who liked to play chess and drink tea. However, there were very few people who liked to put ginger tea beside the chessboard. At least among the people Chu Luiyue knew, she had never seen anyone else like this except for herself. In that case, it's quite a coincidence. That person was called Yu, and she was also called Yu. That person liked to put ginger tea beside the chess jar, and she liked it too. It seemed that it was fate that she met Chang Wanzhou. Chu Luiyue rubbed the teacup in her hand. The tea inside was still hot, and white smoke was rising in spirals. There was a hint of spiciness in the faint bitterness, and it was especially refreshing. She suddenly became curious about that person. If that person was still alive, it should be quite interesting to meet him. Chang Wanzhou was thinking about something, and he was a little distracted. Chu Luiyue called out to him twice before he came back to his senses. What? Chu Luiyue said, I said, let's all rest and adjust for today. We'll go to Chongshu Pavilion tomorrow. Yu Qisong had already gone back, and she specifically left Yi Ranran behind to help them. Therefore, Yi Ranran would also stay here tonight. Although this courtyard was not as big as Mu Mansion, it was more than enough for a few more people to stay. Yi Ranran quickly left. Chang Wanzhou seemed to have something to say and stayed behind. Chu Luiwei walked over and asked with a smile, "If you have anything to ask, just ask." Chang Wanzhou's back was facing the door, and the afterglow shone on his soft blonde hair, making it glow brilliantly. Even his ears seemed to be transparent, outlining the contours of his exquisite face. However, his facial features were hidden in the shadows, half lit and half dark. It was difficult to see his features clearly. Only his eyes shone with a mysterious and obscure light. He was silent for a long time before he asked softly, "Have you been to Nanjiang before?" Chu Luiwei shook her head. The light in Chang Wanzhou's eyes was instantly extinguished like a candle flame. Chu Luiwei's heart inexplicably, as if it was weighed down by something heavy. "I understand." After saying that, Chang Wanzhou turned around to leave. Just as he took a step forward, he suddenly stopped. "Do you think she doesn't remember me?" His voice was very soft, almost dispersing in the wind. His usual cold tone was gone, and his usual stubborn tone was gone as well. At this time, Chang Wanzhou was like a child who had suddenly lost his direction. He did not know where to go. Chu Luiwei looked at his back. The young man's excessively thin figure was hidden in his loose and rough clothes, swaying. A deep sense of loneliness emanated from his body and shrouded him. "How can that be?" Chu Luiwei said softly. "You are so obedient and outstanding. She will not forget you. If she knows that you are looking for her, she will definitely come looking for you." Chang Wanzhou was silent for a long time. "You are right. She will not forget me. Without me, who will make tea for her? Who will help her grind the chess pieces?" His tone was much firmer, as if he was trying to convince someone. "She will not forget me." With that, he left without looking back. His footsteps were hurried, as if he was worried that something would catch up to him. Chu Luiwei's lips moved, but in the end, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. After all, this was Chang Wanzhou's own business. When things settled down here, perhaps he could help him look for her. Chu Luiwei stood there for a while before returning to his room and began to refine pills. As her strength broke through to the 4th rank, she also officially became a 4th-rank celestial physician. As a result, it was much easier for her to refine pills than before. After she finished refining 3 pills, she stopped and began to recuperate. It was not until she circulated her force 3 times that she finally stopped and lay down to rest. A peaceful night's sleep. Early the next morning, Chu Luiwei and the other 2 went to the Chongshu Pavilion together. The Chongshu Pavilion was located on Qingyuan Mountain. Xiling City was extremely large. There were mountains inside and outside the city. The positions of the various sects were different and they were quite far from each other. Therefore, they generally lived in peace. Qingyuan Mountain was located in the northeast corner of Xiling City. What was special about it was that it was a lone peak. However, because the origin power on the mountain was dense, it was a good place to cultivate. As soon as Chu Luiwei and the others arrived at the foot of Qingyuan Mountain, Chu Luiwei realized that something was wrong. In the past, there was an extremely powerful defensive barrier on Qingyuan Mountain. However, although the barrier was still there, the power on it was obviously much weaker than before. Chu Luiwei could not help but ask, "This barrier seems a little strange." "Ah? Oh, you're talking about this. This barrier wasn't like this in the past, but a year ago, someone barged into the Chongshu Pavilion and destroyed the barrier. Later on, the pavilion master and elders had to work hard to restore it. However, this defensive barrier requires a lot of manpower and resources to maintain. Our Chongshu Pavilion is in a difficult situation now, so we can only barely maintain it like this." After saying that, Yi Ranran saw Chu Luiwei's complicated expression and hurriedly said, "However, don't worry. Although this barrier isn't as strong as before, the pavilion master and the pavilion master are still guarding it. However, with the pavilion master and the various elders guarding Clear Source Mountain, there won't be any danger." Chu Luiwei smiled bitterly in her heart. Only Yi Ranran could say that so calmly. In fact, If a sect was not forced into a corner, how could they not even maintain the most basic defensive barrier? It could be seen that the situation in the Chongshu Pavilion was worse than she had expected. It's fine. It's just my first time here, so I'm a little curious. Let's continue. The pavilion master and the others should be waiting for us. Yi Ranran did not suspect anything and led the way. There was only one stone staircase up the mountain, extending from the foot of the mountain to the top. Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou followed behind Yi Ranran. After walking for a short while, Chu Luiyue stopped in her tracks. There was a trace of dried dark red blood on the steps beneath her feet. It seemed to have been there for a while. She looked to the side along the blood stain and her pupils constricted. There was a large amount of blood scattered around, but as time passed, it gradually dimmed. Coupled with the dust, stones, and other things, it was hard to tell if one did not look carefully. However, based on this bloodstain, it was not hard to imagine what kind of intense battle had broken out here. This is only the foot of the mountain. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. I wonder what the scene at the top of the mountain will be like. To be able to cause the Chongshu Pavilion, which used to stand at the peak of the world, to fall all the way here. How terrifying! She took a deep breath, retracted her gaze, and continued to walk up. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 559. Along the way up, the messy bloodstains that had long dried up could be seen everywhere. Some of the steps and the surrounding scenery were also damaged. Chu Luiyue looked at them one by one, and her heart sank. Yi Ranran was obviously used to it and didn't take it to heart. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but ask, Ranran, how long have you been in Chongshu Pavilion? Yi Ranran thought for a moment. More than 2 years, right? But in the past, I mostly followed Master to gain experience outside and rarely came back. A year ago, after the accident in Chongshu Pavilion, Master and I stayed in Qingyuan Mountain. Your master is? My master is Elder Xia Yi, one of the 4 great elders of Chongshu Pavilion. But the other 3 elders are. So now, Master is in charge of many things in Chongshu Pavilion. When Yi Ranran mentioned this, a trace of sadness flashed across his face. The other elders are also very good people, but Chu Luiyue pursed her lips. Of the 4 great elders, only Elder Xia Yi was left. No wonder everyone didn't have high hopes for Chongshu Pavilion. Without the powerhouses guarding it, the current Chongshu Pavilion naturally couldn't be compared to the past. She heard that Yu Qisong had also suffered serious injuries and hadn't recovered yet. When she was with Yu Qisong previously, she vaguely sensed that something was wrong with his body, but she didn't ask in detail. If the pavilion master and the 4 great elders were like this, then there was no need to mention the others. Ranran? You're here. When they were halfway up the mountain, a young man appeared in their line of sight. Yi Ranran looked up and waved happily. Senior brother Lu. Why are you here? Lu Jiao's gaze swept across Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou, and a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. The pavilion master asked me to pick you up. These 2 must be the 2 junior brothers who won the 1st and 2nd place in the Wanzheng competition. Invite them in. The pavilion master, the elders, and your fellow disciples are all waiting for you. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched in the face of Lu Jiao's enthusiasm. Even if it was to welcome him, coming halfway up the mountain to pick him up was a bit. Also, didn't he just say that the entire Chongshu Pavilion was waiting for them? Because the 2 of them? Did they have to? At this time, Chu Luiyue naturally didn't know that since the incident more than a year ago, no new disciples had been admitted to the Chongshu Pavilion. Now that they suddenly had a junior brother and a junior sister, who were particularly powerful, the entire Chongshu Pavilion was inevitably excited. He had gone through a lot of trouble to get this mission. Little junior sister, little junior brother, your accommodations on the mountain have long been prepared. According to the cabinet master, you have already found a residence in Xiling City, but you are still welcome to stay on the mountain for a while. Our Chongshu Pavilion is not so rigid. We have always been very free in this aspect. You can go up or down the mountain as you please. Just pay attention to your safety. By the way, we've been growing some medicinal herbs on the mountain recently. I heard that little junior sister is also a celestial physician, right? In the future, if you want to refine pills, just look for us if you need any medicinal herbs. As Lu Jiao rambled on, he looked at Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou's expressions as if he was afraid that they would be unhappy. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She had met Lu Jiao twice in the past. He was also Elder Xiai's disciple. At that time, she only thought that he was restrained and polite. His talent was not bad, but she never knew that he was actually a chatterbox. However, in the current Chongshu Pavilion, even the pavilion master, Yuchi Song, had to personally sell things to raise money, let alone the people below. For Lu Jiao to say that, it was obvious that he really liked the two of them. Yi Ranran listened from the side and didn't feel annoyed at all. Instead, he also chimed in and occasionally expressed his own opinions. In short, after knowing that Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou had chosen Chongshu Pavilion, the entire Chongshu Pavilion took action to satisfy the two of them. Were they afraid that the two of them would run away? Chu Luiyue followed them up and agreed. Chang Wanzhou was straightforward and didn't say much from the beginning to the end. Lu Jiao thought to himself, this little junior sister is kind and amiable. She always has a smile on her face and looks very easy to get along with. Although little junior brother is a little cold, he seems to listen to little junior sister. In that case, it's not bad. On the way, Chu Luiyue chatted with the two of them and heard a lot of news. When they were about to reach the top of the mountain, Lu Jiao suddenly shouted, "Little junior sister and little junior brother are here." His voice was full of vigor, and it reverberated throughout the entire mountain. Chu Luiyue's mouth twitched as an ominous premonition surged in his heart. Indeed, in the next moment, he saw a group of people suddenly appear in front of him. At a glance, there were at least dozens of people. Little junior sister. Little junior brother. You're finally here. We've been waiting for the whole morning. That's right. Himikwe. I can't see them anymore. Who asked you to run so slowly? Lu Jiao shouted again. All of you, calm down. Don't scare little junior brother and little junior sister. Chu Luiyue. Chang Wanzhou. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but look up at the sky. They had come here early in the morning. It was actually still early in the morning. Why had they waited for the whole morning? Also, what kind of rare object were the two of them? Why were there so many people here? He thought that they were just coming up the mountain to acknowledge a master, but he didn't expect, "Let's go. The pavilion master and the others are already waiting for you." Lu Jiao urged with an excited expression. Chang Wanzhou finally couldn't help but whisper, "Don't tell me you chose the Chongshu Pavilion because of this?" Chu Luiyue looked at him murderously. Chang Wanzhou shut his mouth. Then, under Lu Jiao and Yi Ranran's enthusiastic introduction, Chu Luiyue and Lu Jiao greeted the many senior brothers and senior sisters in the Chongshu Pavilion. By the time they finally broke out of the encirclement, Chu Luiyue's forehead was already covered in sweat. Fortunately, more people didn't come. Otherwise, it would have taken a day just to recognize them, Chu Luiyue muttered. Lu Jiao, who was leading the way, suddenly stopped and looked back at her with a complicated expression. Little junior sister, actually, those people just now are almost all the disciples left in the Chongshu Pavilion. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat as she looked at Lu Jiao in disbelief. What? In the past, there were 600 to 700 disciples in the Chongshu Pavilion. Why were there only so many left now? Lu Jiao saw how shocked she was and hurriedly said, "Actually, there are still some who haven't returned. I'll introduce them to you in the future." Chu Luiyue asked, "Senior brother Lu, how many disciples are left in the entire Chongshu Pavilion?" Lu Jiao sighed. "About 100. Chu Luiyue sucked in a breath of cold air. The casualties from more than a year ago were actually so heavy. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 560. Lu Jiao hurriedly waved his hand. Actually, that's not it. Although there were heavy casualties that time, it wasn't to this extent. It's just that after that, the Chongshu Pavilion plummeted. The pavilion master felt that forcing them to stay would only delay their future, so he ordered them to leave. If anyone doesn't want to stay here, they can take a fee from the pavilion master and leave. Some of them did leave at that time, but most of them left one after another in the past year or so. It would be too presumptuous to say that they didn't have any feelings for the Chongshu Pavilion. However, the current Chongshu Pavilion was indeed no longer the Chongshu Pavilion of the past. Chu Luiyue was silent for a while. That's not the only reason, right? Even if the Chongshu Pavilion encountered these accidents and fell to this extent, it shouldn't be enough to dismiss the disciples. Lu Xiao was conflicted for a long time. He wanted to say something but stopped. Little junior sister was very smart. It didn't seem appropriate if he didn't say anything. What if she also wanted to leave after he said it? Yi Ranran couldn't bear it anymore and said in a low voice, "Lu Yu, there's something you don't know. In fact, the pavilion master did this for their own good. For more than a year, the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion have been ostracized and made things difficult for them everywhere. They can't cultivate properly at all." Chu Luiyue suddenly understood. Someone is targeting the Chongshu Pavilion? Yi Ranran and Lu Xiao looked at each other and nodded slightly. Who has such a powerful force in West Hill? Chu Luiyue frowned slightly, but he kept thinking. In fact, there were only a few people who could do it. It's the third. Lu Yu Wanzhou, you're here. Before Chu Luiyue could ask, Yuchi Song and Elder Shui walked out of the hall. Elder Shui's eyes lit up when he saw the two of them. He immediately walked over and sized them up carefully. Pavilion Master, you've really brought back two rare seedlings this time. Previously, he didn't quite believe it, but now that he saw it with his own eyes, he was finally at ease. Over the past year, not to mention geniuses, even cultivators with average aptitude refused to step into the Chongshu Pavilion. Now, two young geniuses with the Daijing Yuan Meridian had come. It was really raining red from the sky. Wei Qi Song laughed as well, and the wrinkles on his wrinkled face seemed to have deepened as he laughed. I told you you'd love it. These are the two who performed the best in this year's Wanzheng competition. Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou saluted. Greetings, Pavilion Master, Elder Shui. Elder Shui chuckled and couldn't help but ask. He said that the two of you chose the Chongshu Pavilion on your own initiative. Is that true? Chu Luiyue held back his laughter. Of course it's true. Elder Shui stroked his beard in disbelief. Yuchi Song walked over and said, you can take a look around today. You can decide who to take as your master after you've gained a certain understanding of the Chongshu Pavilion. He paused for a moment before he continued, pretending to be relaxed. Initially, there were a few elders to choose from, but now, there's only me and Xia Yi left. Chu Luiyue's heart ached slightly, but he nodded anyway. Thank you, Pavilion Master and Elder Shui. Then, under Lu Xiao and Yi Ranran's guidance, Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou began to observe the Chongshu Pavilion. Chu Luiyue had been to this place many times in the past, but it was very different now. Traces of a battle could be seen everywhere, and many things had been damaged. Although a year had already passed, it could still be seen how desperate that battle was from this. After walking around, Chu Luiyue felt as if something was stuck in his heart, and he felt very uncomfortable. Almost all of the tens of thousands of books in the Chongshu Pavilion had been taken away, and they were all extremely precious prescriptions and martial arts techniques. The precious medicinal herbs had also been looted, and not a single one was left. All that was left was a medicinal garden that had just been planted. Although they had planted a lot of medicinal herbs, most of them took 100 years to grow. These herbs had only been planted a year ago, and they would have to wait for a long time. Chu Luiyue looked at the medicinal garden that had obviously just been renovated and asked hesitantly, Senior Brother Lu, what do you mean? You said that we can come to you if we need any medicinal herbs. Are these the ones you're referring to? Lu Xiao scratched his head, looking a little embarrassed. Although these herbs have just been planted and can't be used for the time being, if little junior sister and little junior brother need anything, just let us know. We'll do our best to satisfy you. Chu Luiyue looked thoughtful. So, Senior Brother Lu, you're saying we should buy them outside? She suspected that these people might not even be able to afford the medicinal herbs she needed to refine pills. Most of the people in the Chongshu Pavilion are celestial physician. There should be a place dedicated to growing medicinal herbs. Why did they just open this medicinal garden? In the past, she had taken a lot of medicinal herbs from here. But why didn't they mention it now? Lu Xiao sighed. Little junior sister, you guessed right. The Chongshu Pavilion did have a very large medicinal garden in the past. After that incident, the medicinal garden was destroyed. Not only were the medicinal herbs inside all damaged, but even that large area of land was affected and became a barren land. Now, this new medicinal garden is one of the few clean places on Qingyuan Mountain. Chu Luiyue frowned. How could this be? Who exactly was it that was so ruthless to the Chongshu Pavilion? No wonder Yuqi-song was forced to such a state. No wonder so many disciples in the Chongshu Pavilion left. Who could bear to stay in such a state? At the mention of this matter, Lu Xiao and Yi Ranran's mood became much gloomier. The few of them quieted down. After a short silence, Chu Liwei said, Senior brother Lu, I want to go to the original medicinal garden to take a look. Lu Xiao was shocked. Why are you going there? That place is already barren. There's nothing to see there. Moreover, the pavilion master has already given the order not to allow disciples to go there casually. A trace of disappointment flashed across Chu Liuyue's face. Yi Ranran blinked and whispered, Senior brother Lu, if Lu Yu wants to take a look, let's bring her there. It's just a look. It's nothing. The pavilion master liked Lu Yu and Yi Ranran so much. Even if he knew, he probably wouldn't punish them. Lu Xiao hesitated for a moment before finally nodding. Alright. But after you go, you can't act on your own. We'll only take a look and come back. Chu Luiyue immediately nodded in agreement. I'll listen to senior brother Lu. Then, the few of them took a detour to another road and walked towards the former medicinal garden. There were very few people in the Chongshu Pavilion now. They didn't meet anyone along the way. This made Lu Xiao and Yi Ranran secretly heave a sigh of relief. The further they went, the more deserted and lonely it became. Finally, after about a quarter of an hour, they finally arrived. That's it. Lu Xiao pointed at a barren land in front of him and said, Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 561. The once dense and lush herb garden had become a truly barren land. At a glance, there were only some withered herbs left on the ochre-red dry ground. A faint bitter smell filled the air. Chu Luiyue stared at the herb garden. How did it become like this? When she heard Lu Xiao say that this place was also affected, she didn't pay too much attention to it. But now that she saw it with her own eyes, she knew how serious it was. The herb garden that Chongshu Pavilion had carefully nurtured for many years was completely destroyed overnight. Lu Xiao sighed softly. When it happened, Master and we were outside, so we didn't know what was going on. When I came back, I found that the herb garden had been destroyed. In fact, the herb garden had always been guarded by people. However, there were too many people that came that day. Moreover, it was obvious that it was premeditated. They directly killed the people who were guarding the herb garden and destroyed the herb garden. This was undoubtedly a fatal blow to Chongshu Pavilion. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. This herb garden seems to take up a lot of space. To be able to destroy it to this extent overnight, they must have used some special method, right? We're also very puzzled about this, but until now we haven't found out what happened. We only know that nothing can grow on this ground anymore. It's completely ruined. Chu Luiyue walked forward. Yi Ranran pulled her back. Lu, what are you doing? The herb garden has been sealed. No one can enter. Even if the pavilion master doesn't pursue the matter, what if there's still danger inside? Chu Luiyue patted her hand. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I'm just taking a closer look. What's there to see? Yi Ranran tried his best to persuade her. The pavilion master and master have already checked several times, but there's still no result. What can you do if you go? Let's go back quickly, okay? Lu Xiao's face was also filled with disapproval. We agreed before that we would only take a look. Little junior sister, you can't go back on your word. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. She felt that the herb garden was very strange, so she wanted to get closer to take a look. However, these two people were blocking her way, so she really couldn't go over. However, at this moment, Chang Wanzhou, who had been standing silently by the side, suddenly walked over. Wanzhou. Yi Ranran and Lu Jiao were both shocked. They were so focused on stopping Chu Luiyue that they forgot that there was another person. By the time they realized it, Chang Wanzhou was already in front of the herb garden. A rusty iron lock hung on the broken iron fence. Dark red bloodstains could be vaguely seen on it. One could only imagine what kind of desperate battle had taken place here. There used to be a special enchantment set up around the medicinal garden, but it was all gone now. The only remaining door, which was damaged, could not stop anyone. With a leap, Chang Wanzhou jumped right in. Lu Jiao and Yi Ranran's expressions froze. Chang Wanzhou actually went in. How were they going to explain this to the pavilion master and the rest? While the two of them were in a daze, Chu Luiyue moved her feet and instantly broke out of their encirclement, rushing to the iron gate. Lu, don't. Before Yi Ranran could finish dissuading her, he saw Chu Luiyue jump in as well. It's over. These two people actually went in. Yi Ranran's round face flushed red. What should we do? Lu Jiao gritted his teeth. Stay here and guard. I'll follow them in. Anyway, those two people had already gone in. It was useless to say anything else. Right now, the most important thing was to ensure the safety of those two people. Yi Ranran nodded nervously. At this point, this was the only way. Lu Jiao quickly followed. He stood in front of the door and gritted his teeth. Just as he was about to enter, Chu Luiyue suddenly turned around. Senior brother Lu, don't come in. Lu Jiao had already taken a step forward, but when he heard this, he retracted his leg and almost lost his balance. What's wrong? Chu Luiyue's expression was serious. The soil here is poisonous. What? Lu Jiao was even more worried when he heard that. Then hurry up and come out. Chu Luiyue shook her head. Senior brother Lu, don't worry. This bit of poison is nothing to me and little Zhou. Wait for us outside first. Lu Jiao was dumbfounded. What do you mean, nothing? Didn't you say it was poisonous? He was still very worried. After thinking about it, he decided to go in. No, I can't watch you guys take the risk. Senior brother Lu, if you come in, it will be considered a risk. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows and said calmly. Lu Jiao looked at her calm expression and the uneasiness in his heart gradually calmed down. After thinking for a long time, he finally said, Then I'll wait here first. If there's anything wrong, call me immediately. Chu Luiyue nodded and turned to walk inside. The faint bitter aura that she smelled earlier was indeed coming from here. Moreover, it was indeed poisonous as she had expected. However, because it was already diluted in the air, it was very difficult to detect. Only after entering this place did he have a clearer feeling of it. The closer she got to the ground, the stronger the poison. Chang Wanzhou's body had accumulated cold evil qi for many years. Ordinary poison had no effect on him at all. When she was reborn, she had already used the opportunity to repair her Yuan meridian to improve her physique. Moreover, perhaps it was because of the power of the water droplet, the effect was much better than she had expected. Although it was not considered invulnerable to poison, it was more than enough to deal with such a situation. Unfortunately, she still couldn't identify what kind of poison it was. Chu Luiyue walked in and searched the ground carefully, trying to find some clues. When she reached a certain place, she suddenly stopped in her tracks and bent down. At her feet, there was a withered creeping spirit ginseng. The roots of the withered and curled leaves were suffused with a faint red color. She wrapped her palm with origin power and formed a defensive barrier. Then, she carefully pulled out the creeping spirit ginseng and carefully examined it over and over again. Sure enough, there was a red line that was like a strand of hair from the root, spreading along the back of the leaf. If one did not look carefully, one would not be able to tell. What is this? Chu Luiyue frowned and muttered softly. Could it be that this red line caused the manling ginseng to wither? She walked to the side and pulled out another snowcloud vine. There was the same red line at the root. There's messed yuan gravel below. Chang Wanzhou suddenly said. Chu Liwei looked up and asked curiously, what did you say? Chang Wanzhou pointed at the thing in her hand. That red line was nurtured by the messed yuan gravel. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 562. Chu Liwei was even more puzzled. What is messed yuan gravel? Why had she never heard of it before? Chang Wanzhou took the manling ginseng from her hand. Be careful of the poison. Chu Liwei was about to remind him to be careful when she saw Chang Wanzhou holding a silver needle in his hand. Then, he pierced the silver needle into the root of the manling ginseng and gently flicked it. Red sand slowly flowed out like water. However, before it could drip down, it quickly evaporated and turned into a faint red smoke that dissipated in the air. Chu Liue's eyes narrowed. So that was where the bitter smell in the air came from. Messed yuan gravel is extremely poisonous. Although it looks like sand, it can permeate anywhere like water. The reason why these herbs withered and were destroyed so quickly is because they absorbed this messed yuan gravel. Chang Wanzhou took the snow cloud vine and gently flicked the root. The same scene happened again. After losing the messed yuan gravel, the two herbs quickly shrank and curled into a ball. Chang Wanzhou pinched them with his fingertips and instantly turned them into powder. Chu Liwei was dumbfounded. You mean, the herbs in this herb garden are all because of this so-called messed yuan gravel? Chang Wanzhou nodded. Messed yuan gravel is extremely mobile. Just a little bit can easily destroy a radius of dozens of miles. This herb garden was naturally not a problem. However, this messed yuan gravel is not that poisonous to people. As long as you don't come into contact with it personally, it won't affect you too much. Chu Liwei looked at him with a complicated gaze. Why are you so familiar with this thing? This thing is very common in southern border. Chang Wanzhou clapped his hands, dispersing the powder as he said disapprovingly. Chu Liwei nodded in understanding. No wonder, when she was the empress, she patrolled the 4 major territories in Tianling. Among the 4 territories, she only didn't go to southern border. It was because the environment there was terrible and dangerous. From the looks of it, the fact that Chang Wanzhou was able to walk out of there on his own was truly extraordinary. If we don't dig out the chaotic essence gravel as soon as possible, the whole mountain will fall into the enemy's hands in less than 3 years. Chang Wanzhou said lightly. Chu Liwei was shocked. Chang Wanzhou is definitely not an alarmist. Then do you have any ideas? It would have been fine if she hadn't known, but now that she knew, she definitely couldn't watch as Qingyuan Mountain was destroyed. Under Chu Liue's expectant gaze, Chang Wanzhou nodded. There is a way, but it's rather troublesome. The mixed yuan gravel seemed to have been buried here for more than a year. It was very likely that it had already seeped into various parts of the mountain. It will take a lot of effort to get rid of them completely. Chu Liwei breathed a sigh of relief. As long as there was a way. What should I do? Chang Wanzhou paused for a moment. First of all, we have to pull out all the medicinal herbs in this medicinal garden and clean them one by one according to the method I used just now. Chu Liue's gaze froze. There were at least tens of thousands of withered medicinal herbs in this medicinal garden. If we really have to do it one by one like this, who knows how long it will take. Other than that, the other flowers and trees on this mountain are very likely to have absorbed it. Those will be more troublesome to deal with. Chu Liue's scalp went numb. Instead of that, it was better to just give up on Qingyuan Mountain. Is there no other way? Chu Liwei held her forehead with a headache. Chang Wanzhou pursed his lips. Digression. I hope that everything will go smoothly for the college entrance examination. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 563. Under Mu Qinghe's strange gaze, Rong Xiu's eyelids twitched. After a long while he spoke. It seems like Vice Admiral Mu is quite concerned about you. Mu Qinghe also felt that she couldn't continue the conversation. Since Rong Xiu didn't know these things, it was pointless to ask. It was better for him to check it out himself. After all, this vice-general was the one who brought Chu Luiyue to Xiling. This is what I should do. He stood up and prepared to leave. It's getting late. I won't disturb Prince Li's rest. Just as he was about to leave, Rong Xiu suddenly said, Vice Admiral Mu, please wait. Mu Qinghe stood still and looked at him strangely. Rong Xiu smiled, and his expression seemed to have returned to normal. This prince has something that I would like to ask Vice Admiral Mu for help with. Imperial Palace, Huayang Palace. Chu Luiyue walked slowly in the backyard. Chani stood at the side and watched. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. Chu Luiyue seemed to be especially fond of these flowers and had been looking at them for a while. There was a thin layer of snow on her head and body. However, she didn't seem to notice it. She walked step by step, as if she had completely thrown everything else to the back of her mind. These flowers, are they that beautiful? Chani was full of doubts, but seeing that Chu Luiyue didn't do anything else, she could only suppress her suspicions. Footsteps came from afar. Chani turned around and immediately bowed respectfully. Your Highness, third princess. Sheng Wanwan walked over. The maidservant behind her held an umbrella for her. Her gaze landed directly on Chu Luiyue. White snow drifted down, contrasting with the blooming flowers. A slender woman in red stood among them. She was like a burning ball of fire. Her face without any makeup was beautiful and seemed to blend into the snow and flowers. It was especially moving. Sheng Wanwan slowly clenched her fists in her sleeves. In this world, there was a kind of person who would become the most beautiful scenery wherever they stood. All the light and color seemed to converge on that one person. This was a kind of spiritual charm that transcended the beauty of facial features. It was hard to describe, extremely rare, and extremely beautiful. She could definitely be considered a beauty herself. But it still felt like something was missing. In her memory, there was only one person who had such an aura. Sheng Wanyu. However, even though Chu Luiyue came from an ordinary background, there was a faint air of nobility about him. Sheng Wanwan felt even more uncomfortable. Hearing the voice, Chu Luiyue turned around and bowed. Sheng Wanwan asked with a smile. It's snowing outside. Why is Miss Chu here to admire the flowers? Because I have never seen 100 flowers bloom at this time of the year, I was curious, so I stayed here to watch for a long time. I'm sure you can only see such scenery here. As Chu Luiyue spoke, a hint of envy appeared on her face. Sheng Wanwan didn't think much of it, but she put on an apologetic expression. Just now, Lords was said that Imperial Father's health has improved over the past 2 days, so this princess will personally take care of him. I'm afraid that I won't be able to keep Miss Chu here today. Chu Luiyue understood in her heart. Third princess, if you have something to do, please go ahead. I won't disturb you any longer. Sheng Wanwan nodded. This princess obtained a few new medicinal herbs recently. They are all rare treasures. Unfortunately, this princess isn't a celestial physician and has no use for them. Why don't I give them to Miss Chu? As she spoke, she raised her hand. The palace maids behind her immediately stepped forward and presented 3 boxes. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment, then accepted them. Thank you, third princess. After that, the two of them chatted for a while before Sheng Wanwan left. Chani was in charge of escorting Chu Luiyue out of the palace. Chu Luiyue left the palace and walked alone on the streets. Earlier, when she was in the back garden of Huayang Palace, she appeared to be admiring the flowers, but in reality, she was measuring the location of the ditch step by step. The ditch was very close to the ground. Just by standing there and paying close attention, she could sense the sound of the water flowing below and the direction it was flowing in. Right now, she had already sketched out the outline of the ditch in her mind. If she guessed correctly, the water in the ditch was drawn from Jade Spring Mountain and flowing toward. Suddenly, Chu Luiyue stopped in her tracks, a hint of surprise flashing through her eyes. The water in the ditch seemed to be flowing toward the Imperial Ancestral Hall. One had to know that the Imperial Ancestral Hall was the most sacred and important hall in the palace. Both inside and outside the hall, besides the guards, There was also a meticulously set up profound formation. That place had been built when the Taizu were still around. Every brick, stone, grass, and tree had been carefully crafted and couldn't be damaged easily. Yet, Shangguan had actually dug the ditch there? Chu Luiyue frowned. What was Shangguan trying to do by doing this? Suddenly, a series of hurried footsteps came from behind her. Hurry up! Hurry up! Eldest young master has summoned us. Why aren't you hurrying up? Chu Luiyue turned around and saw a man urging her with an urgent expression. Behind him, there were 4 men. These people looked to be in their 20s, but their faces were somewhat haggard. Hearing the man's urging, one of them couldn't help but say, "We want to hurry up too. But eldest young master summoned us so urgently that we didn't even have time to pack." That's right. He hasn't summoned us for a year. Who knew that he would suddenly summon us today? Isn't this too sudden? With our current state, we can't hurry up. We still have to bring little 4. Chu Luiyue quickly sized up the few of them and squinted her eyes. These people were all crippled. 2 of them were one-armed, the other was one-legged, and the man called Little 4 had deeply sunken eyelids. He seemed to be blind. Even the man who shouted had 2 scars on his face, which directly ruined his face. He looked very terrifying. The scar-faced man's frown deepened. He looked even more ferocious and bloody. If you don't want to live anymore, just continue to drag it out like this. They all fell silent and tried to speed up as much as possible. Chu Luiyue took a few steps back and made way. They hurried past her. It was snowing now, and there were fewer people on the street. These people walked forward and gradually went away. Chu Luiyue wanted to leave, but she heard one of them speak. "What's the difference between us and death now? If I knew that place was so dangerous, I wouldn't have followed eldest young master a year ago. Now that my arm is broken, I can't cultivate anymore. I'm just a useless person." His voice was very soft, but Chu Luiyue heard it clearly. The other people seemed to be touched and fell silent. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. Eldest young master, a year ago, a dangerous place. Could it be that the eldest young master these people were talking about was Jianghu? The place they were going to now was the Jiang mansion? An idea popped up in Chu Luiyue's mind as she quietly followed him. Digression, con, go offline. Update together at 7 p.m. The rest of the mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.